The second thing is we don't really know how low populations can go. I think we're starting to understand how low soybean populations can go. And that's a very important subject when we talk about tight margins in our production systems.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Across the Tailgate. I'm Adam Gittens, and with me today is Scott Nelson from the Iowa Soybean Association. Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with ISA.
Well, I'm an agronomist with the Iowa Soybean Association. I do a lot of on-farm research, and our big idea is to find ways to help farmers be more profitable, whether that's better management of inputs or achieving higher yields.
And Scott, you had reached out to me. We, of course, HTS Ag has done a lot of data analysis over the years. We've done a lot of trials. I've actually worked as a farmer. I've worked with the Iowa Soybean Association's on-farm network now for, I think, about a decade. We were talking about that before we got started here. It's been quite a while. Just trying different things. What pays the bills? How do we get better at what we do? How do we learn? And you had reached out because you were interested in some of the data we collected this past year. Specifically around soybean population. And of course, that's been the thing. We put out a video earlier talking about the low population trial I did on my farm. And so let's kind of talk through that. I'll set this up a little bit here. So we ran in strips, replicated strips across the farm at 140,000, 120,000, 100,000, 80,000, and 60,000. So we had 5 different populations. And then we replicated that twice in half-mile long rows. And that gave us a lot of data across a really good spread there to understand what does population do in soybeans. Now, the other really important thing here is I'm planting with an Ag Leader Sure Speed planter, 15-inch soybeans. And so we've got hydraulic downforce on every row of the planter, so we're maintaining perfect depth all the way across the field. And we've also got that high-speed meter that's giving us better than 99% singulation even on soybeans as we go through there. And so, Scott, we've kind of talked through the results a little bit. What did you think might happen as we were laying this out, and what were your initial thoughts on this?
Well, a couple of things. One is I just want to highlight HTS Ag in that they're unique in that they're a business that's open and shares their data. And that's kind of rare unfortunately, it's rare in Iowa. A lot of businesses, they sell you things, but they don't let independent people look at their data. So I just want to highlight how important it is, the work that Adam's doing. The second thing is we don't really know how low populations can go. I think we're starting to understand how low soybean populations can go. And that's a very important subject when we talk about tight margins in our production systems. And I would highlight we've done a lot of seeding rate trials with soybeans, but a lot of our trials have been done with drills. And as we get to the newer high-speed planters, it's important that we understand how low we can go with a singulated planter, because that's really important. It's an important difference between a drill and a singulated planter and what you can do for population.
Now, Scott, I know the old thought here was spacing on soybeans doesn't matter. Are you telling me that it does?
Spacing matters, but also emergence, evenness of emergence. We did a trial this past year in collaboration with another business where we measured the evenness of emergence, how important that is in soybeans. And so we counted plants that emerged, on day one, and they got this big, when we counted them, and some were this tall when we counted them. And what we did is we flagged them off from days 1 through 5, how soon they emerged. And we found that plants that emerged 5 days later behind the first emerging plants had about 1/3 of the pods as the first emerging plant. So evenness of emergence is really important in soybeans.
So that makes that hydraulic downforce system really starting to pan out.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so let's dive right into it. Let's talk about the results here. We ran the numbers with the data. So I have $66.75 a bag for seed. Now that includes the treatment. They were Extend Flex beans, so they were on the higher end of the cost spectrum. but that's real cost from my operation. I sold those soybeans. They came out of the field. They went on a truck. They went to the elevator. I averaged $12.72 a bushel, so well below where the market's currently at. But I think it's a fair number. So those are the numbers we used in the analysis here. So $66.75 a bag for seed, $12.72 a bushel for the soybeans we sold. And as we look down through here, we got the results in front of us here. At 140,000, we had an average of 70.59 bushels. And we actually just had a steady increase down to 120,000, 100,000, 80,000. We were up to 73.19 bushels. And the really interesting thing here is at 60,000, we're at 73.9 bushels per acre. And so, Scott, talk about the economic impact of that. I mean, we've got significantly less seed. From 140 to 60, we've got less than half the seed cost. What's that do on an economic standpoint when we start factoring that in?
Well, it's so important because we're living in a time where farmers have high grain prices, but their margins are tighter. And maybe, I don't know, tell me if they're tighter than they've ever been. But the production cost, we've got to watch it. And seeding rate is one way we can manage our production costs if we use the seed that we're planting well. Now, I saw in 2 other trials where farmers went down to 60,000 and one as a lark went down to 40,000. And we still saw, good production at 60,000. I'm not advocating that rate yet. I think we need some more testing, but I'm beginning to get more and more comfortable with 80 to 100,000 seeding rates, in my personal opinion, if you're using a singulated planter.
For sure. So in this trial, with the numbers that we threw out, from 140,000 as the test or the baseline, down to the 60,000 population, by adding about 3 bushel per acre, 3.313 actually, and in the seed savings, that factored out to $79.96 per acre difference. $80 per acre, give or take, or 4 cents from it. That's a huge number when you're talking about tight margins and high fertilizer prices and higher seed costs. It used to be soybeans were $20, $30 a bag, and we didn't worry a lot about, shutoffs didn't really matter. We didn't care if we double planted the beans. Everybody chased corn, and really we were worried about how do we improve the corn. I think we've got a lot of room to grow on soybeans here, and just continue to do the research and understand more about what we're doing. $80 an acre is a huge number in any operation.
Mm-hmm. That is important. And one thing farmers have commented to me, though, when they go to lower populations, they get more branching that's sometimes lower to the ground. And I don't know if you noticed that. Did you have any trouble getting that, getting the lower seeded branches into your harvester?
We really didn't, and we're combining this with a flex draper head, so we've got the ability to get the beans in, and I think it does a better job of collecting the seed than some of the auger style heads. I think that's definitely a benefit, but it cut pretty smooth to the ground, and there was nothing really left out in the field to be seen. Sometimes you do see those fields where you just can't cut real low, and that bottom little bit of the plant still had some pods on it.
Yeah.
It just makes you shake your head wishing you had those in the combine. But that was not the case in this trial. Scott, another thing I wanted to highlight, of course, Ag Leader Technology actually ran the results for this. We're looking at the tech trial by Ag Leader. And this is data that we had some trouble early on because I was running some beta firmware for Ag Leader, and we were unable to read the data. So the Iowa Soybean Association, you guys have not gotten your hands on the data yet, but that is something that is coming soon. You'll do an independent analysis of it, and we really feel strongly that adds a lot of value. It verifies what we're seeing. We make sure that we're learning from it, and we're not just touting a product, because that's not our goal. But it makes the results accurate, and I think that's a really important piece of this as well.
Right. We have some very smart people that are dedicated to data analysis, and they do a really good job working with those trials. So the one thing, if for all of you, I'm going to plug the ISA a little bit, is help us to help you in that sharing your data and helping us understand it and analyze it and running trials with us really goes to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, and Scott, one of the things that, looking ahead, we talked about what's coming. And so I think one of the things that ISA wants to do is dive into this data and understand the yield by rate and also by soil type. And what do you think we'll learn from that?
I think that the soil types will respond differently to seeding rate, and that's something we need to understand better to up our production.
Yeah, I think that leads us towards better variable rate prescriptions, a better understanding of how do we put the right rate on the right soil and get the most benefit from it. But it really just deepens the understanding of the data that we have and helps us to learn a little more from it. I think the correct seeding rate is just absolutely crucial to the economics of the operation, and so that's one of the things that we'll really be able to hone in on by having that data and digging in a little deeper to it. So
yeah, if I could add a little bit to that, I think variable rate seeding is so key to your operations, to managing your input costs. But I will add a little caveat to that, in that I think the best prescriptions come when the farmers are engaged with that prescription. Some guys just get a prescription and they plug it in their planter and they trust their advisor, and that's good to do. But I think it's also important in modern ag is that farmers spend a little bit of time looking at their yield monitor data, looking at their data. I know, Ag Leader has Agfinity, and then there's other software platforms that farmers can use. And I think it's just in modern times it's crucial and very important to your operation that you spend some time with some software looking at your yield monitor data and understanding the trends in your field so that you can make better variable rate inputs and improve your production.
very good. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for coming down and spending some time with us today. Any final thoughts to add?
Well, just comment, with the current crisis we have, the world needs food. 30% of wheat comes from Russia and Ukraine, and 18% of corn comes from that part of the area. And so I'm hoping and praying for you guys to have a good, profitable year because the world needs food.
All right. Thanks again, Scott. And we'll wrap up this episode of Across the Tailgate. Appreciate your time and coming down, and looking forward to further analyzing the data and seeing where we can go.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adam.
All right.